Welcome back, Love Nation. This is Nina. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you to everybody that has been coming to my channel. Like this video, share this video, and hit that notification bell so you guys know when I drop my next one. Listen, you guys, this is part 4 of the Blake Lively versus It Ends With Us Justin Baldoni lawsuit. And you guys, this has to be one of the most egregious workplace environment issues I've ever seen in my life. We will be continue to read through this as details of how Justin Baldoni was acting on the set is spelled out in this lawsuit, and it is very shocking. Again, this is part 4. Please subscribe so you guys can see the full lawsuit as we continue to read through it. And we're about to get started with part 4 of the reading right now. Mr. Baldoni inserted improvised, gratuitous adult content and/or scenes involving taking off of clothes into the film, including for an underage character in highly unsettling ways. After Blake Lively signed onto the movie based on a draft of the script, Mr. Baldoni, without Blake Lively's knowledge or consent, personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Blake Lively was to have an orgasm on camera. When Blake Lively objected to these additions, Mr. Baldoni insisted he had added them because he was making the film through the female gaze. Although he agreed to remove the scenes, he made a last-ditch attempt to keep one in which the couple does it together on their wedding night, which he says was important to him because he and his partner does that simultaneously during adult activity. Mr. Baldoni then intrusively asked Blake Lively whether she and her husband do that simultaneously during adult activity, which Blake Lively found invasive and refused to discuss. On the day of shooting the scene in which Blake Lively's character gives birth, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath suddenly pressure Blake Lively to simulate full taking off of clothes, despite no mention of taking off of clothes for this scene in the script, her contract, or in previous creative discussions. Mr. Baldoni insisted to Blake Lively that women give birth without clothes and that his wife had ripped off her clothes during labor. He claimed it was not normal for women to remain in their hospital gowns while giving birth. Miss Lively disagreed, but felt forced into the compromise that she would be taking off clothes from below the chest down. When the birth scene was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, and utterly lacking in standard industry protections from filming those type of scenes, such as choreography. The scenes with an intimate coordinator having a signed writer or simply turning off the monitors so the scene was not broadcast to all crew on set and on their personal phones and iPad. Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni also failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through while Blake Lively was mostly without clothes, with her legs spread wide open in stirrups, and only a small piece of fabric covering her lady parts. Among the non-essential persons present that day was Wayfair's co-chairman, Mr. Soritz, who flew in for one of his few set visits. Blake Lively was not provided with anything to cover herself with between takes until after she made multiple requests. Blake Lively became even more alarmed when Mr. Baldoni introduced his best friend to play the role of the OBGYN when ordinarily a small role of this nature would be filled by a local actor. Miss Lively felt that the selection of Mr. Baldoni's friend for this intimate role, in which the actor's face and hands were in close proximity to her nearly nude lady parts for a birth scene, was invasive and humiliating. To add insult to injury, Mr. Heath approached Blake Lively and her assistant on set and started playing a video of a fully undressed woman with her legs spread apart. Miss Lively thought he was showing her adult films and stopped him. Mr. Heath explained that the video was his wife giving birth. Blake Lively was alarmed and asked Mr. Heath if his wife knew he was sharing the video, to which he replied, "She isn't weird about this stuff," as if Blake Lively was weird for not welcoming it. Blake and her assistant excused themselves, stunned that Mr. Heath had showed them that video. Mr. Baldoni added a detailed scene to the film in which the underage versions of Blake Lively's character, Lily, loses her. In both the book and the script for the film, there was no scene like that. Instead, the details about this moment were left to the audience's imagination. But Mr. Baldoni added in considerable details, including both dialogue between young lady Lily and her boyfriend Atlas about the loss of her innocence, as well as a simulated adult scene in which Baldoni filmed and included in his initial cut of the film. A close-up of young Lily's face, accompanied by an audible gasp at the moment of it happening. Blake Lively was informed that when this scene was shot, after Mr. Baldoni called cut, he walked over to the actors and said, "I know I'm not supposed to say this, but this was hot. And you two did this in practice? Did you practice this before?" Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath discussed their personal preferences and previous addictions and tried to pressure Blake Lively to reveal details about her intimate life. During a car ride with Blake Lively, her assistant and driver, Mr. Baldoni claimed to Blake Lively that he had been abused by a former girlfriend, which he has since shared publicly. At the end of the story, Mr. Baldoni shared that it had caused him to re-examine his past. He then said, "Did I always ask for consent? No. Did I always listen when they said no? No." Mr. Baldoni claimed this was an example of how we all have things from which we can learn and grow. Miss Lively was unsettled by Mr. Baldoni's suggestion that he had engaged in adult activity without consent. When Blake Lively exited the car, her driver immediately remarked that he did not want Blake Lively to be alone with Mr. Baldoni going forward. On the first day of production, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath described their past relationships to Blake Lively, including that one of them used to hook up with a woman. Mr. Baldoni said he had decided the woman wasn't the one, so then Mr. Heath had gotten together with her. Blake Lively found this description of passing along a woman to be disrespectful and disturbing. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath often spoke of their previous adult addiction. Mr. Baldoni would often reference this to Blake Lively. Hoping to shut the subject down, she said to him privately that she had never seen it. Later, when Mr. Baldoni was once again referencing his experiences with adult activity, he revealed in front of other cast and crew that Blake Lively had never seen those types of adult movies. It was an incredible invasion of her privacy to discuss any aspect of her intimate life with the cast and crew, much less reveal something that she had only told Mr. Baldoni to try to get him to stop talking about the subject with her. Mr. Baldoni engaged in other behaviors that were shocking and emotionally distressing. For example, he claimed he could only speak to the dead and on several occasions told her that he had spoken to her dead father. It was off-putting and violative for Mr. Baldoni to claim a personal relationship with her recently deceased father. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath were also constantly hugging and touching cast and crew. When Blake Lively or others avoided this touching, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath would retaliate by becoming irritated, cold, and uncollaborative. The result was an unwelcoming and mercurial environment for Blake Lively, her employees, and others on the set. Mr. Baldoni objectified Blake Lively and other women by commenting on or criticizing their bodies as objects. Mr. Baldoni often referred to women in the workplace as sexy. When they expressed discomfort, Mr. Baldoni would deflect or try to pass it off, which undermined Blake Lively and others' concerns. For example, on one occasion that Blake Lively observed, he told a female cast member that her leather pants looked sexy. When she arrived to set, when she rebuffed his comment because she was uncomfortable, rather than apologizing, he brushed it off with, "I can say that because my wife is here today." Blake Lively felt embarrassed and witnessed this kind of commentary, as did others. On another day, Blake Lively wore a low-cut dress to facilitate feeding her child, but had covered it up with a coat. When the jacket briefly popped open at one point to reveal the dress, Mr. Baldoni commented about how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Blake Lively. Later that day, Mr. Baldoni pressured Blake, who was in her pre-approved wardrobe, to remove her coat in front of the crew and multiple background actors in a packed bar. He said he wanted to see her onesie under the coat because it was zip-low to reveal her lace bra. Consistent with past practice, he said, "I think you look sexy," in a tone that made her feel oogled and exposed. With other female casts present, she said, "That's not what I'm going for." He bristled and replied, "I'm sorry, hot." Deeply uncomfortable, Blake Lively said, "Not that either." Mr. Baldoni responded sarcastically, "I guess I missed the HR meeting," and walked away. Another woman on the production spoke to Blake Lively afterward to offer empathy and to share her own experiences with Mr. Baldoni, commenting about her in those type of terms. As a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior on May 29th of 2023, another cast member lodged a SH complaint about Mr. Baldoni's gross and unwanted comments toward her and others. While on one hand Mr. Baldoni was objectifying Miss Lively as an adult object, on the other hand he went out his way to message criticisms of her age and weight, neither of which she could change during filming. On the second day of filming, for example, Mr. Baldoni made the rest of the cast and crew wait for hours while he cried in Blake Lively's dressing room, claiming social media commenters were saying that Blake Lively looked old and unattractive based on paparazzi photos from the set. She tried to reassure him that she should look authentic in scenes depicted in the photos, which were just after her character had been pawed by her fictional husband rather than hot. Mr. Baldoni, however, appeared focused on Blake Lively's adult appeal above all else. His lengthy outburst caused a delay in shooting, forcing an emotional scene to be shot haphazardly. I will be stopping the reading of part 4 right here as we continue to read through this lawsuit. Please like, share, and subscribe so we can continue reading this lawsuit. Till next time, be safe and enjoy your day. Bye, guys.